Welcome to this short video about validating statutes. My name is Rebecca Valentine, and I am a public services librarian here at the UMass Law Library. This video is intended for 1Ls taking legal skills, but could be helpful to anyone who wants to learn about validating statutes in Lexis and Westlaw. In this video, I will go over why you should validate statutes, what you are looking for and where, using Lexis and Westlaw to validate statutes, and validating statutes using print sources. Let's get started with why you should validate your statutes. Just like with case law, statutes and their validity are not static. Statutes can be affected by legislature by being repealed in whole or in part. They can also be amended. In court, a statute can be held to have been preempted in whole or in part by federal law, or a judge can decide it is unconstitutional. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of actually validating statutes that you found in the previous research steps, let's first go over what you're looking for when you're validating statutes. We first want to look at the treatment of the statute. Just like with cases, we will be looking at flags or signals. Then we will check the effective dates against the dates provided by our client or legal question. If the effective date is after the period in which you are researching, then the law does not apply to the situation. For language, we are specifically looking for which words have been added or deleted that will have a substantive effect on whether or not the statute applies to your research question. We also want to combine this with the effective dates to evaluate cases. Cases decided before the effective dates of the statute or language amendments will be interpreted differently than cases decided before. For example, if a statutory definition has changed. Finally, we will be looking at the currency of the controlling statutory code. We do this because newly enacted laws are not immediately added to the code. Finally, no matter where you decide to validate, be it Lexis, Westlaw, or in print, you want to look up your statute in an annotated code. This is because these versions will have enhancements by experts in the field, and they are updated somewhat more frequently. Now that we know what we're looking for, we can learn how to do that on Lexis and Westlaw. Assuming you have your client file, you've created a research plan, and you've already found a statute. We are going to start with the statute, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 188, Section 1. Let's start with Lexis. We first want to look at the treatment of the statute. Just like with cases, we will be looking for flags and signals. In Lexis, we can look at the panel on the right and we will see a brief summary of the treatment. I can see here that it has a red warning signal. The top of the column will provide a reason. In this case, there is pending legislation. To see the details of that treatment, we will click Shepherdized Document. And then we will click the warning. With this example, we can see that it has been ruled, according to the Lexis attorney, unconstitutional in part. So we need to click on that case and see which part has been ruled unconstitutional and whether or not that affects our research. I will also note that if you need a reminder about what the different Lexis signals are, this is where you find them. Just click Legend. Now we want to check the effective dates against the dates provided by our client or legal question. To do this, we need to find the editorial notes. In Lexis, we are going back to the main document, and we'll look for the Notes section, although it is sometimes called Commentary. In this example, we can see that there have been numerous amendments, and some of the more recent ones have effect dates. If the notes or commentary does not include the effective dates, you can sometimes find that information in the history notes. On Lexis, that information is available amongst the headnotes. Now, as I mentioned, this particular statute has been amended a few times. To assess the language, you can click the button Compare Versions to see additions and deletions in a visual representation. For example, we can see a strike through here along with the addition there. though in the case of this statute, the notes section does indicate what has been changed with each amendment. Addition, subtraction. Finally, while we are in the text of the statute, if we go back to the top of the document, we will see that this statute is current through Chapter 70 of the 2025 legislative session of the 194th General Court, which is the first half of the current legislative session, though the wording will differ between states. Now we will do this all over again in Westlaw. In Westlaw, we will first check the flags. We can see right at the top of the document that there is a yellow flag, which indicates some negative treatment. If you need a reminder about what the flags mean, you can click on the Powered by Keysight button at the top. We can see from this example that it has received some negative treatment in court and from proposed legislation. To see the details of that treatment, we will click History tab and select Validity so we can see whether or not these cases and legislation will affect our research. If we conclude the facts are not an issue for our research, we then want to check the effective dates. To do this, we need to find the editorial notes. In Westlaw, we are going to stay in the History tab, but we will select Editors and Revisers notes. From here, we can see the effective dates of the different amendments. Note that you can also see some of the changes made here. If there are no effective dates, you can also check the credits section at the bottom of the main document. The EFF period standing for effective. If you want to view the visual difference of the language, you can click one of the citations of the amendments, so you can see what has been taken out, or you can click Compare Versions. Finally, while we are in the text of the statute, if we scroll to the bottom of the text, we will see that this statute is current through Chapter 65 of the 2025 First Annual Session, which is the first half of the current session. You can also validate using print. However, do this with caution, as the print version is more prone to errors and can be a bit complicated. What you're looking to check will largely remain the same, however, how you do that will be different. Here are the examples of what these look like. On the left, we can see the pocket part edition of the Massachusetts General Laws Annotated with our chapter and section. On the right is a supplement for a different volume of the same series. Next, we need to make sure this pocket part is the most up-to-date. As you can see from the example on the slide, this was updated in 2025. However, if we check the first page, we can see the current through information, in this case, 2024 Second Annual Session, which, if you remember, is just slightly behind what is available online. You can now begin to review the commentary to your statute. Be sure to review all the notes, references, and subsequent decisions. If you have any questions, please email me at rvalentine@umassd.edu. For general questions, email lawlib@umassd.edu. You can find this video and more on our YouTube channel. Thank you.